my channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm Jessie and you're watching. Yo, welcome to a very exciting video. In this video, I'm going to be unhauling, what? Who am I? Unhauling 100 books. Now, I just did a video where I hauled 100 books, and so I think it's only appropriate that I unhaul another 100. I went through my stacks with a fine-tooth comb, and I personally, it was like getting rid of my children. I don't have children anymore because I'm getting rid of them. You know what I'm saying? It was the definition of pain. And so you get to reap the benefits of my pain, my suffering, and my torment in this video where I let go of books. It's just time. It's just time. Now, before we get into all of the nitty and the gritty of this 100 book unhaul, I gotta give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, which is none other than Pango Books. Pango Books is a marketplace app designed for people to buy and sell used books. With Pango Books, users can take a picture of the book, scan its barcode, and create a listing in seconds. And they emphasize the ease of selling books and the value of buying your books used from folks who love the same books as you. Now, literally anyone can sell their books on Pango. The app is super user-friendly and it is very easy to download. It is available on both iOS and Android. I have been selling my books on Pango and it is, I'm telling you, it is as easy as that. I was a little bit nervous about getting into the app because I am a grandpa and I'm just not really that good with technology, believe it or not. They also just send you a shipping label. All you have to do is print it out, stick it on a package, and then mail it out. Like, that's literally it. Another thing that I absolutely adore about the app is that they have what are called threads where you can interact with other readers. You also can follow other booksellers on Pango. I follow Starla of Starla Reads and Reagan of Peruse Project, who both have shops up on Pango, and I can always stay up to date on whatever books they're selling and jump on them. You will not believe how good the deals are on Pango Books. I literally got this book off of Pango. It is Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, and I am so freaking excited to own this gorgeous edition of her works. Another dope thing that I personally love about the app is that they have Pango Bucks, so whenever you earn money from Pango, you can either withdraw it into your bank account or you can leave the money on the app and use it to buy more books. And I bought that book with my Pango Bucks. So I literally sold books and then got that in return, and it didn't cost me any money. I didn't lose on anything. I also have a $5 code that y'all can use towards your Pango books, and that code is bowties5. It will be linked in the description box below. So you already get a $5 head start over on Pango. Now, they currently are US only. Also, it's important to note that the code can only be redeemed in the app and not on the website. So be sure to download that app. And many of the books that you are about to see me unhaul in this video are going to make it onto my Pango shop. So as you're watching this, if you are interested in any of these books, definitely go ahead and steal them from Pango. A lot of these books are brand new and some of them are special edition. Thank you so much to Pango Books for sponsoring this video. Now, without further ado, let us hop into this bookish unhaul. The first 4 books we're going to start with are romance books, and I don't think that comes as a surprise to literally anyone who watches this channel. Y'all know romance just is not my thing. So the first book that I have here is The Light Between Oceans. This was made into a big motion picture with Alicia Vikander and Michael Fassbender. Fun fact, I think they met on the set of this film and now they're married. I used to have a big crush on Alicia. Like the hugest crush ever since I watched Ex Machina. Do y'all remember that movie? It was like a cyber. Why am I pushing Ex Machina on you? It's an amazing science fiction film. It is incredible and I highly recommend y'all watch it. And she plays the lead cyborg in that film. But this is a romance book that is like set on an island and it's got a lighthouse. And I wanted to read it for some reason. I just was drawn to kind of the romanticism of the story, and it has been sitting on my shelf forever. And I know darn well I'm not gonna read it. I know if I do read it, I'm not gonna really enjoy it. it would be a 3-star read at most. So it's just time to let it go. Then the other book that I read is Satisfaction Guaranteed. I read this for Sapphic-a-thon. I did a Sapphic-a-thon reading vlog with myself and the other co-host, Jan. And for those of you who don't know, it is a monthly readathon where we all read Sapphic books. And it's 24 hours and I'm so excited. So I'll leave the details for that below. But yeah, this book is about a girl who inherits a sex toy shop, and she and this accountant have to work together to save the shop, and then they fall in love. And it features the worst sex scene I've ever had the torture of enduring. I had a reaction Jan and I were in tears. We were on the ground rocking and wheezing. It was that freaking bad. It involved a hawk. And so I will leave that video linked down below if you want to, if you want to experience what I experienced. This book was like, it was like a negative star, okay? So both of these, they gotta go. Now, the other two books that we have for the romance unhaul is People We Meet on Vacation and The Ex-Hex. I did a reading experiment video where I tried to get into romance for the first time as a grumpy asexual. And that is going to be linked in the description box below. I read famous Book Talk, Book of the Month romances, and these were, spoiler alert, these two were not it. They were not it. This is the most bland, mediocre oatmeal of a romance I have ever heard. And I think that if it weren't witchy, none of y'all would be hyping it either. Then we have People We Meet on Vacation. And this book convinced me to never take a vacation ever again. I DNF'd it. I didn't even bother finishing it. It was like being punished. Absolutely not. Then we have another Book of the Month book. This is called Damnation Spring. I have not read this book. And the reason that I'm unhauling it is because I know that I'm not going to. It's been on my shelf for a while and I just have not been reaching for it. And I just don't think that it's going to be something that I'm going to enjoy. It is set in 1977 and it centers around the forest and this family that is like trying to save their forest, which as an earth sign and someone who actually does deeply and utterly love the woods, I was initially excited about this, but I realized with all of the other books on my shelves, this is not one I'm going to be reaching for. And I just think it's time to let it go to another home. Then we have a book that it hurts me to let go of. As I was pulling it down the shelf, a lone tear rolled down my cheek. No, seriously, I was literally standing and holding it and just touching it and looking at the cover and just like trying to talk myself out of it. I have had this book on my shelves for years. And I never picked it up. Once I bought it, actually, I read, I think, to like page 50 and I really wasn't that interested, but I was trying to get interested, right? And I wasn't. But you know why I'm keeping this book? Why I have kept it?
It's because of the cover.
I'm a sucker for gold foiling. And again, the romanticism of this book, it is a romance set surrounding the Eiffel Tower. It is following a young woman who I believe is a nanny or a governess, and she falls in love with the builder of the Eiffel Tower. But man, it's just so beautiful. And I feel like part of the reason that I'm filming this unhaul is so I can look at this book cover. I have like video of it and I can just enjoy its aesthetics. But I ain't gonna read it. I have another book that it was very difficult for me to decide to unhaul, and that is none other than The Lost Apothecary. This was a Book of the Month book that I was excited about reading. The Lost Apothecary is where women can go to get things that they can use against men who have hurt them. And I love the cover, but more importantly, I love the setting and I love the premise. But I did a poll on my Instagram and I was like, should I read this? Should I not? This was a while ago. And people were like, Jessie, it's nothing special. You're not gonna love it. But some people were like, yo, you should really read this. And I realized it's been on my shelf for a minute and I'm never reaching for it. I never think about it. And like, I think it's time to let it go. Then I have two books geared toward young adults. The first one is A Lat's Away by Darcy Little Badger. I have another copy of this and I'm keeping that copy. I recently read A Snake Falls to Earth. I got an arc of her latest book, A Snake Falls to Earth, and it was amazing. I liked it so much more than Let's Away, and I think that this is a book that is just better shared. So I'm excited to give this away and let somebody else enjoy this really, really beautiful and magical story. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, A Let's Away follows a Lipan Apache asexual girl, and she is trying to figure out who murdered her cousin. So it is a mystery. It is deeply spiritual. It involves a lot of mythology as well. It's a really beautiful, touching story. And if y'all enjoyed A Let's Away, you have to pre-order her latest book. I mean, A Snake Falls to Earth is incredible. Like, you cannot go wrong with that book. And then I also have Stamped. This is a adult book kind of talking about anti-racism and the history of racism in America. It's like 600 pages long. And then this is the version that is geared towards young adults. So Ibram X. Kendi wrote the adult version and then collaborated with Jason Reynolds, who is an amazing YA Black male author, to create this volume that's accessible to young kids. And I love that it says this is not a history book. This is a book about the here and now. It's a book about race. And so the whole thing about this was they wanted to create a book that wasn't about history. I mean, it is about history, but they wanted to create a book that doesn't feel so darn like difficult to slog through and boring. And I loved the way that it was written. I think it would be more special to pass this on to a kid or a youth who hasn't had the privilege of learning those lessons yet. Then we have I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. This is a book from an amazing duo of two women, one who is Black and another who is white, and they team up and write books about just race and womanhood and just a bunch of things. And this book centers a riot that breaks out in the middle of a football game, and it is racially motivated, and it's about these two girls trying to literally survive the night together, and they don't like each other. They have very different worldviews. And it was really, really good. I had a very great conversation about this book with the authors, and I just was so touched. They have a new book out too that I'm really interested in, and I enjoyed it. I gave it like a 3 or a 4 star. I think I bumped up to a 4 because of the great themes and the way that those themes were handled. But I know it's not a book I'm going to reread, and I think it would be better to pass this book on. Then we have another book that I did not like, and that is Cinderella is Dead. I talked about this book in a Waste My Time video, which is my series where I critically tear apart books that I did not enjoy. And unfortunately, this I did not love. Now, I wanted to enjoy this book because you know that I love my Black girl science fiction and fantasy stories, and this is a Cinderella retelling, and it is sapphic, and I was really excited about having a queer Black Cinderella story. I should not have been excited. I wanted to like this book, but I really did not like the way that closeted characters were treated and handled in the story and vilified. I also have a video where I talk about the disturbing way that closeted characters are treated in modern and historic literature, and it is so jacked up and it makes me mad. And I just felt like this book handled it so poorly. The main character handled her closeted partner so poorly, and I just can't read books like that. I can't recommend them because it is so problematic and hurtful. So again, I will leave that video linked down below if you are interested in it. But I love this book for its Black girl magic, but I hate this book for the problematic way that it depicts closeted queer folk. Then we have To Kill a Kingdom. This is a kind of like a Ursula Little Mermaid retelling sort of thing, and it follows sirens. They lure men and they eat their hearts. And in this story, we're following a girl, I think her name is Lyra.
Wow, good job, Jessie.
We're following a princess named Lyra who has a particular taste for male royalty, and she sets her sights on this prince and she wants to eat his heart. But when he captures her, they end up falling for each other. And I actually was really enjoying this story. Then the romance kicked in, and it did this thing that I really hate that happens a lot with YA fantasies. Adult fantasies do it too, but I find that it's much more consistent with YA fantasies. And it's this thing where you have two very powerful, headstrong characters. Especially like a girl character, and then they fall in love, and all of a sudden they are a whole different person. Everything is rainbows and kittens. It's like wool has been pulled over from their eyes, and now they are just frolicking in a field of pansies. And I absolutely hate it. We had such a bomb, vicious, brutal, bloodthirsty female protagonist, and then she falls in love with Prince Elian, and then all of a sudden she's just like petting kittens and sniffing grass or whatever. It just like, it bugs me so much. I was so freaking frustrating and upset, and I just, it's time to let it go. I've been holding on to it because there are things that I enjoyed about this book. Like, I just love the aesthetic. I love the cover. I loved the vibes of it. I love books that are set at sea, even though I'm terrified of the deep ocean. This is a book that I really wanted to enjoy because it is from a very, very celebrated author of color. And I was so excited to get into this author, but unfortunately I had to DNF it like on page 30. The writing just wasn't it for me. There was a lot of telling, there was no showing, and it just felt it just read a little young for my taste, but that makes sense. I'm not the audience for it, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I can obviously read books that are set for a younger audience. I read a lot of middle grade. I do read children's literature like picture books because they comfort me. But this is the kind of targeted for youth book that I just cannot stand personally. And so I was like, I do not want to have to rip apart this book, especially because I'm not the audience. So we're going to set it aside. Okay, so if you like your YA fantasies that are very just laying everything out for you, then you should read this book. But I was not impressed. I could not. It was a little too cheesy. It was way too telly. It couldn't be me. It was like a Teletubby. This book that we have here is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This is a very pretty edition, as you can see. And I was sent it in a box. I think I received it from a Lumicrate. I'm so bad at keeping track of special editions and that sort of thing. I was excited about it just because of how pretty it is. It is a YA fantasy, and I forgot to mention, it is also signed. So this is definitely going to be up on my Pango. And there are some bonuses to it. You know, there's large print, which I feel like always makes the book go faster. And this is a book that is set in 1828 in Paris, which we absolutely love to see. The greatest thief that the court has ever known. Jacqueline has lost more than most when her father, Thénardier, sells her sister to the Guild of Flesh. Gross. She makes a promise to do anything she can to get her sister back. Crumbling cathedrals of the city and a guild of thieves and assassins that are known as the Court of Miracles. I opened this book as I was like doing my unhaul figuring out. I was like, I'm not going to enjoy this book. I'm not the audience for this book. The writing just did not capture me. It was not impressive to me. So I was like, you know what? We're going to unhaul this and let somebody else enjoy it. Then we have The Five Midnights, which initially I was so excited about. It is a Latinx horror book set on Puerto Rico, and we are following two teenagers rather, who are trying to figure out why a bunch of kids from the barrio are being murdered and they're disappearing. And it turns out that there is a monster that is hunting these kids. And so I was excited about that, but this book was really problematic, unfortunately. The way that it handled addiction was jacked up. I was so angry about the way that it treated folks who have addiction. I had major issues with the way that that was handled. I also thought that there were issues with the depiction of dark-skinned Puerto Ricans, personally as a Latinx person. And more importantly, I heard a lot of criticism from Puerto Rican reviewers. And there are some detailed reviews on Goodreads from Puerto Rican reviewers that I highly recommend going to look at. But I'm going to be unhauling this book. I heard that the issues that this book presented, like the author listened to them and corrected them in the second book, which I love to see it. I love when authors listen to feedback and they work on that, and they work on putting out a more healthy piece of literature. I think that that is so admirable, and I love to see it. And this book didn't stick with me, even putting all those other things aside. This book just simply didn't stick with me. And so I'm just going to be moving on from this series. Then we have Hope is Our Only Wing. This is a really sweet, beloved story, and it is a YA story, and it is just so utterly, absolutely beautiful. The writing was stunning. I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook was my heart and soul. I highly, highly recommend this book. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 star. But the reason I'm unhauling it is because it is such a magical story, and I think that it is so much better served to kids in our community who are going to get to read it. So I'm excited to pass this on. And the thing is though, I don't even remember what this book is about. And that's the other thing. If I look at a book that I've read and I remember nothing, it means that it didn't make an impact on me and that it's time to let it go. So this is a book about a 15-year-old who is grieving after her father's mysterious death in a car crash. And an unexpected friendship blooms between her and a classmate whose life has been turned upside down by a cancer diagnosis. And they form an unexpected friendship. And it's a really, really good book. So then we have 2 books that I have not read, and both of them are arcs. This is Color Outside the Lines, Stories About Love, and it just seems really sweet. It's giving chicken soup for the soul. What were those books called? Chicken soup for the, oh man, I'm too old. I can't remember what those books were called, but those of you who remember, you know what I'm talking about. And I just know I'm never gonna read this book. I'm not big into love in general anyway. I'm just not the audience for this. This arc was gifted to me at BookCon, and it follows a Black teenager who is killed by police, and she kind of like comes back as a ghost, and the book is told in vignettes from her and the police officer and people in her neighborhood. And I've spoken about this recently on my channel, but Black trauma narratives, I was forced to read a lot of them as a kid because those were the only times that I got to have Black representation, was if Black people were being murdered or if it was slavery or something like that. And I'm just personally over them. My heart is too heavy with Black death to like keep reading books about Black death, especially because I'm very educated on issues affecting Black lives. And so 9 times out of 10, I just move away from those kinds of narratives, not because they're not important, but because I've already absorbed them and I want to focus on Black joy and Black magic and Black science. So I'm just in a different spot, and I think that this book would be better served elsewhere. Then we have a book that I have not read, and that is The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert. And this is a book that takes place in a high school. When Marva sees Duke turned away from the polling place, she takes it upon herself to make sure that his vote is counted. This book takes place over the span of 1 day, which is a trope that I really enjoy. But I just know that even if I read this book, I don't think it would be like a 5-star thing. I don't think it would be a book that I'm wildly interested in, and I think it's just time to let it go. We have a book that the publisher sent unsolicited, and this is called The Last Thing to Burn. This came out in April of 2021, and it's set on an isolated farm in the United Kingdom where a woman is trapped by the monster who kidnapped her 7 years ago. And she finds out that she's pregnant, and she makes a plan to escape. This is far too traumatic for me to read, okay? It's giving Room, that book, which I also refuse to read. I am not reading this book. I am so good on this book. So this is gonna have to go somewhere else. I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. I have In 5 Years by Rebecca Serle. So this is a book that's gotten a lot of hype, and I'm still not sure on the synopsis. So when she wakes up, she's suddenly in a different apartment with a different ring on her finger and beside a different man, when previously she was engaged to another man, and then she wakes up and she's in someone else's bed and she's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And I just kind of don't care. I don't really care. And we have a very special book, which is Shuri, a Black Panther novel, and it was written by none other than Nick Stone, who I absolutely love and adore. I love the Shuri comics, and I've had this book on my shelves for like, I think over a year. Oh my God, see, I haven't even opened it. The font is blue. Do you see this? That is so gorgeous. Oh my God, that is so beautiful. I'm so excited about this. Like, you have no idea how excited I am about this. This is a book that I would like to gift to a Black kid in the neighborhood. And a lot of these Afrocentric books, I am going to be taking down to the George Floyd Memorial. They have a library down there, and I'm going to be putting these books in there for Black kids. This is a book that I'm sure that I would love, but I think it would be better to not hoard this and to let it go to somebody who needs it more. Then we have Hurricane Child by Kaysen Colander. This is a middle grade romance story. It is spiritual magical realism as well. And we are following a girl who was born on the eve of a hurricane, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her missing mother. I did not really love this book. I think I gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars. I think I gave it a 3 because of themes, but really I just did not enjoy it. I did not like the writing. I wasn't really invested in the things that were happening, and I think it's just time to let it go. Then we have Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know. This is by Samira Ahmed, and I was like not impressed with Internment by the same author. I really didn't like it. I really did not like it, and a lot of folks that I know also didn't enjoy it. A lot of Own Voices reviewers that I'm friends with did not enjoy it, and that's not the reason why I'm not interested in this book. I simply have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy this book. And a big part of that feeling is because I think this author's writing style just isn't for me personally. Okay, so the synopsis on this book is very complex, and I tried to summarize it, and I just know I'm not going to be able to do it. So if you are interested in this author and this book, look up the synopsis, but I am definitely going to be unhauling this. And then we have a book that I was sent called New Waves. It's a novel by Kevin Wynn, and I was so geeked about this book. It is marketed as a thriller, but so many people have told me that it really does not give thriller. It gives more of a contemporary. So we're following a brilliant programmer named Margot, who is tired of being talked over as the company's sole Black employee. And then we are also following Lucas, who is one of the many Asians at the firm who feels invisible as a low-paid customer service rep, and they decide to steal their Techstarter's user database in an attempt at revenge. This book sounds amazing. I love the cover. Every time I say I'm going to pick it up, I don't. And I just finally admitted to myself that I'm never going to read this book. Then we have a bunch of Book of the Month books, and my Book of the Month books are definitely going to be up on my Pango. This is Too Good to Be True. This is a thriller that follows a couple who I think works to deceive another woman. Each of these three perspectives have different versions of the truth, so I think they're telling the same story from different perspectives. Again, when Book of the Month sent this to me, I was so geeked about it, and ultimately I realized that I was bored by it and not going to read it. And we have another book that I was initially excited about, but I know I'm never going to read, and this is called How Lucky. We are following a man who lives with a chronic debilitating disease. He's unable to leave his home, and one day he sees this woman and he starts observing her, and he witnesses her being kidnapped, and it's about what he decides to do. And I was initially intrigued by this. I'm never going to read it. I just know I'm not going to read it. Then we have It Ends With Her. I was excited about this when it was sent because of the cover. I love red hair on covers. I don't know why. I just think it's so striking and beautiful. And we're following an FBI special agent on a hunt for a serial killer, that kind of thing. And I'm never going to read it. I'm bored already by it. I opened it and checked out the first chapter. The writing was super dry. It's going to have to go to a different home. Then we have Sherry LaPena's Not a Happy Family. I read this book for a secret video that is going to be up before the end of the year, or really early next year. So I'm not going to talk about this book. But I will say this book, I'm so glad I did not pay money for it. Then we have The Golden Cage, which I was excited about. This is a very kind of popular commercial thriller, and I know that I'm never going to read it. It follows students, they're ex-students at a business school. One was a golden boy while she worked hard just to bury her dark past, and none of the perks of wealth can compensate for her husband's coldness toward her, and he's having an affair. It just sounds like every single popular, beloved commercial thriller, and I have decided this year, I have finally realized that those books just aren't for me. I don't give a funk about them. I'm moving on from these popular, hyped, beloved commercial thrillers that I always read and feel nothing towards. That is exactly why I'm unhauling The Couple Next Door. I'm unhauling this one because after my experience with Not a Happy Family, and then I read the audiobook of another one of Shari's books, I just know this is going to be a waste of time. Next book is Goblin by Josh Malerman, who I initially thought was one of my favorite authors because of Bird Box, but then I read this, and I think he might need to leave the list. This was my October buddy read with my patrons, and none of us liked it. It's a collection of ghost stories, and the scariest thing about this book is how bad it is. Again, it is another thriller set in the woods, shocking secrets, there's a pregnant girl. I don't care. Now, out of all of the books that I have in these stacks, the next one is the one that I'm the most insecure about unhauling, and that is The Vanishing by Wendy Webb. So please comment down below. I am going to hang on to this for, maybe a week after I post this. If you've read this, comment down below. Let me know if you think that I would actually like it, especially if you know my reading taste really well. But this is a book that is set in this like really creepy, potentially haunted house. And we are following a girl who is asked to be a companion for someone's elderly mother who lives in this house. And that is one of my favorite tropes, like an outsider being brought into a home that is huge and with lots and lots of secrets. And it's supposed to give Rebecca and Haunting of Hill House vibes. But it just seems so boring and run of the mill. And I believe it's set in Scotland, but the atmosphere of the book is like what's really calling to me. So please let me know what you think. However, when I opened it, the writing just like didn't call to me. It didn't speak to me. I do think it's really cool that there's a map of the house though. Okay, so the next book that I have here is Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. It's described as a pure page turner, heart racing, explosive, brilliant. And again, it's just another one of these popular kind of like commercial thrillers that I'm not really interested in. And this one sounds kind of gimmicky. It's about a person who kind of like wakes up and has to relive the same day over and over. And I'm just like not that interested in it. And by not that interested in it, I mean I'm not interested in it. And then we have On Harrow Hill, which is a Dave Gurney novel. And these like these commercial, best-selling, old white dudes who write crime thriller books, I never enjoy them. They're always dry. Like they never have lubricant. This book, I bought this recently at a used store. It says $7.50, but I got it for like $2. So basically, this book was sold at a used bookstore in March of 2016 for $7. And then whoever got it put it back because they fucking knew that this book was not it. So this is described as a cliffhanger conspiracy thriller. And when I picked it up, I was like, ooh, oh my God, this sounds kind of cool. And the synopsis is really wild. Like there's a cyber attack at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. And there's a newly appointed FBI agent who's a former academic star with degrees in astrophysics and computer science. And his investigation takes him on a journey to the secrets at the very edge of the universe and also deep into his own past as the countdown clock continues and extraordinary events begin to manifest around the globe. Like this synopsis is 9 pages long and it has 3 plots in it. And I think that's what I was drawn to initially. And I realized I'm never gonna read this book and it really isn't that interesting. This author photo? Why was this? Okay, thank you. Next. I don't know why I picked this up. I think the reason that I picked it up was because I liked the vibes. I liked the fact that it didn't have a jacket. I liked that I had no idea what it was about. The problem is I consistently fail to pick this up. So I think I just like how it looks, which means I need to let it go. Then we have another one of these just commercial crime hunter thrillers, and it's called Fire Watching. This was sent to me unsolicited, and we're following like detectives who are hunting a cold case. It's just, I don't care. I was sent this book last year by Putnam, and I was not interested in it then, and I'm not interested in it now. And I have a book that a subscriber sent unsolicited, and that's called The Audacity. And I like the cover and I like how wacky it sounds. And so this is a book about May's humdrum life that's flung into hyperactive drive when she's abducted. But not all the aliens are out to probe her. She inadvertently is rescued by Zahn, an I Love Lucy obsessed alien with the orangest rocket ship in the universe. And so it just sounds really wacky and cool, and it's supposed to give Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I think it's really dope, but the problem is I never reached for this book. I've had it, I think, for like 3 years or something like that. I find it so touching when subscribers are browsing or something on Amazon, they're like, oh my God, I think Jessie would like this book, and just send it. But the problem with that is I feel really bad if the book that they send isn't one that I'm interested in. So I tend to be like, please don't send me unsolicited books because I'm gonna feel so bad if it's something I don't like. Like I'm a really picky reader. Y'all know this. At so many times, I wish that I wasn't, but I think it's not so much that I'm picky. I think it's just that I know what I will like and won't like, but not everybody else does, you know, because I have such specific types of taste. And ultimately, so I've kept it on my shelf because I was like, I really want to read this because someone took the time to send it to me. Someone thought, oh my gosh, Jessie would like this. And I want to honor the time that that person took to send me the book. But Ultimately, I've realized that I'm just never gonna read it. It really, unfortunately, just isn't my type of story. And I think it would be much less selfish of me if I let it go and let somebody else read it. And I have Vigil by P.B.O. Bang, who is an amazing, awesome dude. Like, he was one of the first people that ever sent me a book, and we still are in contact to this day. And this is from his Vigil series, which is about a kind of superhero special forces team that goes out and does awesome missions. And I love superhero stories, and I love superhero stories that intersect with books because I'm a huge comic book nerd. I never talk about comics on this channel. I used to when I started, but the point is I know that I'm not going to revisit this story, and I don't think I'm going to be continuing with this series. I'm going to let it go to another superhero nerd. Ugh, bye! I'm just gonna prop them up in my lap. So the next book that I have here is The Murder Game, and this was a YA thriller that was sent by Fire Reads. Oh, it's dark academia. Two boys decide to sneak out of their boarding school room one night because they think it sounds fun, and they'll meet up with a couple girls in the forest. But when the wife of one of their teachers is found dead in the woods the next morning, Luke realizes that they're in deep trouble. I don't think I'm going to enjoy reading it. It's not for me. The next thing we have is The Last Thing He Told Me. And this is a thriller, I think, about a woman looking for her missing husband who disappeared. He disappeared. I think he left a mysterious note, and then she's left to raise his daughter, aka her stepdaughter. And originally I was excited about this one, Book of the Month sent, but ultimately I realized I never enjoy these types of thrillers, so we're just gonna let it go. Then we have my arc of Sunny's Song Will Never Be Famous. I have another copy of this book, and I really enjoyed it. I read it earlier this year. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And this follows a girl who's a YouTuber, a Korean girl, and she wants to be famous, but then one of her videos goes viral for a very bad reason, and her parents send her to a social media detox camp. And it's a really good, really funny, enjoyable contemporary story, but I don't need 2 copies. Then we have The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. I have another copy of this, and honestly, I don't know if I'm even gonna read that copy. So what I'm gonna do pretty soon, I think I'm gonna do a series of videos, which I'm gonna call Unhauling Vlogs, where I take books that I'm unsure of and I read a little bit from them and decide whether or not to unhaul those books. And The Book Thief, I think, is gonna be one of those books that I don't like the way that I phrase that. That's creepy. Megan Abbott's Give Me Your Hand. This is one of my favorite thrillers of all time, but I have another copy, and the copy that I have, I think, is my preferred cover. I like the cover with the flower on it. I think that's the one that I have. But this is a really good medical, dark academia thriller that is set in a lab, and someone dies, and these 2 girls have to cover it up, and it is so good. Her stories are very suspenseful and dark. They're kind of gothic in their storytelling, but really, really phenomenal. Then we have An Anonymous Girl. And I love books that are written by 2 authors. Now, this again is a very, very famous commercial thriller, so I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna like it, but I think I have another copy of this somewhere. Don't ask me how I got this. I didn't steal it from my library, I swear. This is a book that centers a girl who signs up for a psychology study, and it is run by this very mysterious doctor named Dr. Shields, and she thinks this is going to be a simple experiment, but finds out that it's going to be a lot more complicated than she originally planned for. I don't care! And we have Where the Crawdads Sing. I bought this for $5 at a vintage shop, and I was so excited to get to it because everybody on Bookstagram was raving about it. And this is by a white author, and it features the N-word. A few people have told me that the N-word is used in this book, and I personally will not ever enjoy reading a book where a white author profits from using the N-word for any reason. I don't care. I don't care if it's historical accuracy. Any of the excuses people make for why it's okay for white authors to write the N-word, I don't buy. I'm not having. You can say those excuses because I've heard them all, and all of the reasons for them are rooted in racism. So that book can be celebrated by other people, but I'm not going to be one of them. Then I have It's Not All Downhill From Here by Terry Mcmillan. This is a really cool book about a woman who's 68, and her family is telling her that, like, she is not going to amount to much in life anymore. And so she decides to prove them wrong. And I was really excited about this book because it deals with ageism and the ways that we write elders off in our society. But unfortunately, the writing. Okay, I wanted to love this book. My TBR cards picked this book for me and I was so excited to get to read it. And I had to DNF because I was like, I'm gonna give this a 1 star. It was trying to be funny, but it was so cringy. And I know cringe humor because I think I'm hilarious. And I know I'm not funny. So if I say something's cringy, I am telling you it's cringy. Earlier on, I made a joke about Teletubbies, and I know it wasn't funny, but I still laughed about it in my head. This book is, I couldn't do it. No. Then a subscriber, again, this is another example as to why y'all shouldn't send me books unsolicited. A subscriber sent me Tisha, and there was no note in the box, so I still don't know if someone was like playing a trick on me, like playing a joke, or if it was a subscriber who genuinely thought I would like this and just was like too shy to leave a note or something. So I'm gonna read you the synopsis, and y'all tell me what you think, because I'm still so perplexed about why this book was sent to me. It starts off with some quotes from the book. Tisha, yes, you one hell of a good white woman. With these words, an Indian boy named Chuck hands over his heart and his trust to a young teacher in 1927 Alaska, and Tisha is Ann Hobbs's true story. Full of energy and ideals, Ann treks across the northern tundra to become school marm in the remote gold rush settlement of Chicken. Here her life's adventure begins, an adventure that pits her against the relentless Alaskan winter, sometimes savage determination of the colorful lot of Chickenites that Anne will conform for her own good to their standards. I don't think I need to explain why I'm unhauling that. And we have an arc of Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. The publisher sent me like 9 copies of this book. So I'm unhauling this, but like I love this inside jacket. And of course this is a not a multi-generational story, but it is a story where we're following a big family and it's told in vignettes and it sounds really good and I still haven't read it. So again, I think I need to do this book for that unhaul reading vlog. Again, please
stop saying do books, Jessie. Like that needs to end.
Now I have 3 copies of Anxious People. I've got this one, and then I've got 2 hardcover ones, and then I have another one up there, so I have 4. So I'm unhauling all 3 of those. And then I have These Ghosts Are Family by Macy Card. This is a multi-generational story where we're following a Black family, and that is one of my favorite tropes. I love multi-generational stories. I always will. And then again, this has like a cute little flap, which we absolutely love to see. So I'm really excited to get to read this eventually. I don't even think I'm gonna get to read this in the next year though, but I definitely do not need 2 copies. Then we have Memorial by Brian Washington. This is the Book of the Month edition, which I'm going to be giving away. And I have another copy of it that's not Book of the Month edition, but I feel like y'all would enjoy the BOTM editions the most. Now, this is a book where we are following a mixed race gay couple. It's supposed to be really funny and touching. This next book is just one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in my entire life. So this is Muted, and just look at this. Ignore Akasha. Okay, she's having a moment. So this is about a teen who is coming up in the music scene, and she meets this famous R&B artist who is older and preys on her, and it's about her trying to find her voice to speak up about the sexual abuse that she endured at his hands. I have 2 copies of this. I am actually really excited to read this, but I'm so excited to pass this on to one of you. And then the publisher sent me Greedy Unsolicited, and it's notes from a bisexual who wants too much. And I am so excited about giving this away to someone. I just know that I'm never gonna read this, even though I think I would really enjoy some of these essays. But it talks about the ways that bisexuals are seen as greedy and as wanting too much, and just different like things about bi stereotypes, which are so important to counter, but I'm never gonna read it. I have 2 copies of Disability Visibility, which I read this year and loved. This is a collection of essays from disabled individuals talking about their experience experiences. So amazing. Like, I cannot recommend this book enough. It is super hyped and it deserves all of the hype that it gets. Then we have two books that I did not like and would not recommend. The first one is Destination Wedding. I was so excited about this book when the publisher was like, do you want to read this? And I said, heck yeah, absolutely. And then I started reading it and I had to DNF. I had to DNF this book. There was no freaking way. Absolutely no way I was gonna get to read this. This was another book that was like really, really cringy and very difficult to read. I read this for Where the Readers Grows' book club. She started it earlier this year where she celebrated books from Asian voices. And this was one of the picks. And I was like, Chandra, I'm so sorry, but I'm hating this book. And she was like, no, I'm hating it too. None of us in the group chat were enjoying this freaking book. Oh God, it was not it. The writing was really not it. And there was just too much going on.
There was way too much going on way too soon.
There were characters were being thrown at us like baseballs. Just from every freaking direction, you're dodging and weaving, you got black eyes, and none of them were being explained. It's gotta go. Then we have The Power, which I made an entire Wasted My Time video about. This is a really beloved feminist story, which was blurbed by Margaret Atwood, so that should tell you everything that you need to know about why this book shouldn't be read. Girls who overnight develop the ability to electrocute boys. And it's not as revolutionary as people think it is. It absolutely erases trans people. It is white feminism 101. The depiction of people of color is just outright concerning. The fetishization of the black male character was very deeply concerning. I have a Waste My Time video on this that I'll leave linked down below. I don't even know if I already said that. I'm tired of talking.
I'm tired of hearing myself talk.
I'm also going to be selling a hardcover and a paperback copy of The Other Black Girl. I have a physical copy on my shelves that I will be keeping, but this is a story about a black girl who works in this kind of all-white publishing office, and then another black girl comes into the office and there is rivalry and competition between the two of them, and also a very, very intense mystery that threatens her life. Now, this book is a lot. It is very wild. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but it is good. We only have 2 stacks left. I'm about to power through these, okay? It's gonna be an Olympic sport, so let's go. Just pretend that Eye of the Tiger is playing right now. I have 2 of these books. The other one is on the floor and I don't care to pick it up. But this is a middle grade story that is set in London. And I picked it up from a used bookstore, I think earlier this year or maybe last year, and I don't know why, because I know I'm never gonna read this freaking book. I love my middle grade fantasies. It centers Harry Houdini and like magic magicians, and just look at that. It's giving War of the Worlds. I'm never gonna read this book. I'm gonna unhaul that to a kid who deserves to read it. And then The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I think I have another copy of this. And if I don't, who cares? Because I know I'm not gonna read this book. This is another like hyped commercial thriller. And it's just any of these books that's like The Girl on the Train, The Woman in the Window, The Witch of the West, or whatever. I never like them. I never care. They never leave an impression. Like, I'm freaking good on that. I know I'm not. I ain't gonna read that book. And then we have Pretty Little Wife. I have another copy of this. Again, it is a very commercial, beloved thriller that I don't think I'm going to like. But the other copy I'm going to be saving for that unhaul or not unhaul vlog that I'm going to be doing. God, y'all, my book room is a mess. It is a mess. Then I have Are You Enjoying? This is the Malala's Book Club edition, which is super exciting. Anyway, this is a collection of stories from a Pakistani author, and I have, I think, the hardcover of this book, and I do want to read it. It is very important to me to pick up more books by Pakistani voices, and I have 2 copies of this, so I think it's really important for me to pass that on. Then I have Send For Me. This is a very, very popular story that is set, I think, in both modern times and non-modern times. And we're following this girl who she's about to get married, I think, and she opens this chest and finds letters from her grandmother, her great-grandmother, who fled Nazi Germany, I believe. And it's supposed to be really, really good. But I have another copy of this and I am really excited to actually read that. And then we have The Natural Mother of the Child. I read this for Non-Binary Book Club, NB Book Club, which I run over on Instagram, where we celebrate stories by non-binary authors. And this was our pick, I think, for May. I was so excited about this book. Like, I could not have been more geeked. No, it wasn't May. It was like August or something. This is one of the worst books I've ever read. I did not like this book. I really did not like this book. I had so many issues. You're going to hear me talk about this in a Waste My Time video at some point. I'm sure of it. This book, I would not recommend. I really thought that the author was abusive towards their partner. And also the writing style I did not like. It was told in these vignettes. And I did not like how the vignettes were written. There was a lot of really, 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 really short, choppy sentences. And I hate that. I hate that so much. Then we have another memoir. This is called Made in China. And this is the story of this Chinese woman who ended up reporting her parents for like forced labor. I did not enjoy the way that the story was written. I did not enjoy the writing, but I loved the story itself and the messages about what you deserve and love and like overcoming and healing from abuse and all of those things I thought were really special and important. But the book itself, I'm not going to reread it. I didn't enjoy the writing and I'm going to be passing it on. Then we have some books that were sent to me that I know I ain't going to read ever. So this is Screen Queens. I always want to say Scream Queens. Screen Queens. And it is about it's a thriller. It's like a funny contemporary thriller and it's cyber. And I'm not going to read this book. Look at it. I hate the cover. This is one of the most hideous covers I've ever freaking seen in my life. I don't know whose idea this was, but it was not mine. Jan and I just did a video where we talk about really ugly book covers. So if you want to see us react to the most hideous book covers ever known to man, watch that video. It'll be linked down below. Not me linking every video I've ever made in the description box of this video. Then we have Ethan Hawke's A Bright Ray of Darkness. This was sent unsolicited. And I don't care what Ethan Hawke wrote. He's a great actor, but I am not looking for his stories, okay? Like, it's about like his marriage imploding. Why is that the photo that he chose? Like, dude, he looks like a yoga instructor. I think this cover is so beautiful. I read the first book when I was a kid, absolutely loved it. I loved how real and gritty it was. And this sequel was like 20 years in the making. But every single person who has read this book told me that it sucks. And I do not want to let anything ruin The Coldest Winter Ever because that was the bee's knees. So I'm just gonna let this go. I've heard that it is mediocre, that the writing is not it. It's supposed to be not good. We're gonna give that away to someone who will read it because it's not gonna be May. Then we have One by One by Ruth Ware. I was so geeked about this story, but I've heard nothing but bad things. That's not true. I think Gabby liked this book. I have a very hit or miss relationship with Miss Ruth Ware, where some of her books slap and a lot of them just miss the mark. This I was excited about because there's an avalanche and they're snowed in and I love claustrophobic settings. I just have a feeling I'm not gonna enjoy it. Some places more than others. This was another book that was sent unsolicited and it's by just beloved by a Black author, Renee Watson. And I just know that I'm not the audience for this book. Like, I just don't think I'm going to ever read this book. It's been on my shelf for like 2-3 years. I'm not going to read it. It is a middle grade novel about a girl who really wants to visit New York City and connect with her roots and her grandparents. And it's supposed to be really touching and sweet, but I just know I'm never going to read it, unfortunately. And then we have A Good Kind of Trouble, which is a story about a young girl. This is in middle grade, and she wears a Black Lives Matter band to school one day, and it just uproots the whole school. Everybody's upset about it, and she decides to stick to her guns and keep wearing it. And again, I don't think I'm ever gonna, I know I'm never gonna read this. I've had this book on my shelf for like 3 years. I'm not gonna read it. That stack is actually a lot bigger than I thought it was, so we're gonna have to break it into, oh my god, it's so heavy. Okay. Why do I have so many books? So then we have Girls Like Us. We're following 4 teenagers who all have unplanned pregnancies. And what they decide to do about them. And this is supposed to be a really, really good book, but I've had it for a while and I just know I'm never gonna read it. Like, I'm really not that interested in it, if I'm being perfectly honest. Then the publisher decided to send 9 million copies of Honey Girl, which was one of my anticipated releases of, was it this year? January of 2021. And Starla of Starla and Joyce was like, this book is bad, don't read it. And other people who had read the book were like, Jessie, you're not gonna like this. And so it's a story about this scientist who is very, very responsible, and she goes out to Vegas and gets drunk and comes back with a wife. And it's about what happens from there. And I just like have heard that this book is not it, that the romance like really isn't it, that it's just not good, the writing's not good, and we're just gonna let that go. Then we have a fantasy from Book of the Month called Half Sick of Shadows, and I'm kind of conflicted about letting go of this fantasy, but I think I think I've ultimately decided to just let it go. And this is a female retelling of Camelot. I don't care about Arthurian myths and legends. And then I've got a book I know y'all are gonna be excited about. This is A Deadly Education, a dark academic novel. And I kept this book because it is so pretty. It is so, so pretty. And I know that people were critiquing this book for the negative way that dreadlocks were depicted. Like, there was a really ignorant line that the author wrote about dreadlocks. I think the author has since apologized, which is good. That's not the reason that I'm not gonna be reading it. I just don't think I'm gonna rate it very high. I don't think I'm gonna enjoy it. I do have a little bit of trepidation about letting it go, but ultimately I just think it's
Girl, bye.
I don't care about that book. Then we have the special edition of Deadly Education. I think this is from Illumicrate. Yeah, it is from Illumicrate, and it is gorgeous. Look how gorgeous. Look at these blue. I've always felt that touching this, the blue is gonna come off of my hands because it's so vibrant. It looks and kind of feels like chalk. And I really wanna keep this for myself just because it's so gorgeous. But no, one of you deserves this book, not me. Like, one of you who's gonna appreciate it. And like, look at this fucking book. Oh my God, and it matches what I'm wearing. Oh my God, I might need to like photograph myself with this book before. I'm doing that, I'm photographing. This book is so gorgeous. I'm obsessed. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I don't want to give this book away now. But I'm not going to read it. Like, what's the... It's so pretty. Weeping. And I have The Book of Magic by Alice Hoffman. I was initially excited about this because Book of the Month sent it, but I realized I don't care about this series. I don't care about Alice Hoffman. Good, let's move on with our lives. I'm never gonna read Alice Hoffman. I'm feeling that if I did read it, it wouldn't be revolutionary for me. You know what I'm saying? So then I have Band of Seven, which was sent to me really early on in my booktube journey, and this is another superhero story. And it was so enjoyable, but I know I'm not going to revisit it, and I think it would be best to pass this book on. So this is a book about kids with preternatural abilities, and they end up banding together to do something. I don't remember what they were supposed to do. It was good, but it just didn't stick with me. I think I initially gave it 3 stars, and I really can't tell you like any of the characters' names. And then we have another Black superhero story, which is awesome. Again, this was a self-published book, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars, and it gave Static Shock vibes. It was really satirical, and it was pretty darn funny, but again, I just not gonna read it. Like, I forgot that I had it, and so I think it is time to give him to another home. Outfit matching vibes. It's a look. Then we have The Silver Witch. I was supposed to read this with Brandy of Brandy's Books. We never got around to it. Silver Witch gives cottagecore vibes, which I like, but I'm not interested in this book. I kept trying to make myself be interested in this book for the vibes. I've had it for 4 years, and I think I just need to come to terms with the fact that I don't care about this book. So we are following a woman who lives she moves to this Welsh cottage because her husband dies and she's a ceramic artist, and then in this lake, this magical witch pops up and says, hey, you're a witch too. And it's kind of that vibe. And I don't care. I have a feeling I would read that book and forget about it in 2 minutes, in 2 seconds. And then we have The Editor, which was also sent unsolicited by the publisher. In 1990s New York City, we love the vintage vibes. And Jackie O, as she's known in the office, has fallen in love with James's candidly autobiographical novel, one that exposes his own dysfunctional family. I got bored reading that synopsis. Then we have The Art of Racing in the Rain, which I think I picked up for, I was planning this video where I'm gonna read like really sappy books to see how I feel about them. And I already know the answer. I'm not gonna like them. Or maybe it's just, I don't even care. Then we have Something to Live For, which was sent unsolicited. And I just know that I'm not gonna be living for this book. We're following a man who has like a really mediocre life, but he's carrying a big secret. And he is trying to decide whether or not to come clean about it. Something like that. And I don't care.
You're probably wondering how you got here.
Then we have Packing Light, which is a collection of essays on living life with less baggage. I have no idea how I came across this book. I don't know how it's on. I don't know who put it on my shelves.
But I swear it was not me.
And obviously, if this video is any indication, I cannot live life with less baggage. So I think that this book is not going to help me one bit. And then we have A Little Hope by Ethan Joella. This is another Book of the Month book. And this is a story of, I think, a dozen neighbors and how their stories intersect and intertwine. And then we also have another Book of the Month exclusive. And this is in a book club far away. And we're following like members of this book club. Something happens. I don't know. There's a scandal. But even the cover is just not serving. Like, it's just such a bland sugar cookie cover. I don't care. I'm never gonna pick up that book. We are never, ever, ever getting back together. This is a book that I picked up at a thrift store a long time ago. It's called The Kept. And I got it because it gave like mystery vibes and it's set like winter tundra. I'm over it. Now, this is a book that I was excited to read. I literally requested this book from Penguin Teen. And I'm just not going to read it. Now, this book is The Lovely War by Julie Berry, and I was so excited about it because it tells the story of this couple during World War II, I believe. And the story itself is spun by goddess Aphrodite, who is charged on Mount Olympus with telling an interesting tale, or else she has to face punishment. And I was so excited about reading this book. I love war stories. I love when gods are characters in books. But this book also has the N-word, and I'm good on it. It just couldn't be me. So many of y'all make excuses for non-Black authors writing the N-word, and it could never be me. Like, I could absolutely never be someone to like stand up with my whole chest and make excuses for that sort of thing. Then we have The Other Americans, and this is a book that was sent to me that I just know I'm never going to read. It centers a family called the Dessoms, and they've had their share of troubles, and it's about the deceit and the deception.
You're probably wondering how you got here.
Okay. Now my book stacks are all on the floor. I don't care. I'm not going to read this book. It's about a family. Then we have We Are the Brennans, and this is another Book of the Month book that I know that I'm never, ever, ever going to read, and it centers an Irish family called the Brennans, and I don't care. I'm bored just talking about it. I'm not going to read this book. Now we have a book that I have read, and no. This was called The Life We Buried, and it's by Alan Eskins. And I was really excited about this book because this is from a Minnesotan author. And I love reading books by authors who live where I do. I love supporting Minnesotan authors, and I'm not supporting this one. This is a story about a boy who is tasked with interviewing someone older for a school assignment. And so he decides to go to a nursing home and interview this elderly man who is dying, who was accused of a very heinous crime, like abusing and murdering a young girl. And he's utterly disgusted with this guy, but he decides to interview him anyway. Then he decides to go on a mission to prove whether or not he actually did this crime, because the man has maintained that he didn't commit it. And so as he goes on this mission, his own life becomes endangered. Now, I had issues with this book because the manic pixie dream girl is strong with this one. And then there was the way that his autistic brother was handled and treated in this story. As someone who has a brother that is autistic, I was deeply horrified with the portrayal of autism, and the way that this character was used was so gross and stereotypical and also harmful. I had so many issues with this book. Like, I gave it 1 star, I think, but I think I'm gonna just give it 0 stars. Absolutely not. Then we have another book that I'm never, ever, ever gonna read, and that is When Galileo Prays. One killer, one cross-country rampage. Only she can stop him. Well, she gonna have to stop him without me, because I ain't reading about it. This was sent to me earlier this year, 2021, by the publisher. It was one of my most anticipated releases, and it tells the story. It's set in China. We are following a man who is trying to raise his son to be more responsible. His son is like really spoiled and lazy. They are tailors, and one day this like very wealthy American who is gay named Jude comes into the shop to get something designed, and he decides that he wants Jude to sponsor his son. But in order to sponsor his son to come to America, Jude asks in return that the father help him come out to his dad. And it's kind of one of those stories where a man is overcoming his prejudices and accepting that gay people exist and are valid. And I just don't think I'm the audience for this book. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. We have 3 books left.
Oh my gosh.
Are you tired? Because I most certainly am. The first of the 3 is the Subtweet by Vivek Shraya. I have held on to this book because I was hoping that it would somehow grow on me, but unfortunately it just hasn't. So this is about 2 women who are singers, and they're musicians, and they're friends, and they have a falling out over Twitter. And it's supposed to kind of critique like cancel culture and relationships between women and the ways that women are pitted against each other. And I just didn't enjoy the way so many topics were handled. I didn't enjoy the writing. And just so many things about the book were a big miss for me. This is by a non-binary South Asian author, and I have heard lots of people enjoy it. I think Audrey, Perpetual Pages, really enjoyed it, but unfortunately I did not. So definitely check out Own Voices reviews, because I think my opinion is in the minority. But I think that this book would just be better served elsewhere. So I'm going to be giving that away. And then we have The Flood Girls, which I think I picked up at a used bookstore at some point. It still has a Target sticker on it, but I know I would not have bought this book at Target. So this is a book about a girl named Rachel who left her town years ago after like leaving a trail of damage. Same. And she decides to come back and correct her wrongs. And I really like the cover. Like I like this van. I would totally live in this van, you know? I'm never gonna read it. I've had it on my shelf for a couple years. I'm never gonna read it. I don't care about that book. I don't care about that book. And the final book that I'm going to be talking about is The Reckless Oath We Made. So this is a book about a girl who is like really self-protective, and her best friend who is autistic and very much like wears his heart on his sleeve. And I think someone in her family gets abducted, and so she turns to her friend for help. And it's about what happens from there. And look, it involves a dog. I like books that involve dogs. I'm not going to read this book. That is going to do it for this bookish unhaul 100 books. I think it might have been over 100 books. It's insane. It is insane. So that's why my shelves are in complete disarray, because I had to pull 100 books from them. So what books have you unhauled recently? Please let me know any of your thoughts on the books that I have mentioned, and don't forget to check out those videos in the description box that I have linked for you. Don't forget to download the Pango Books app and use my discount code bowties5. Thank you so much to Pango Books for sponsoring this video. I really appreciated it, and I'm so freaking glad to get these books off of my shelves. Like, it just is such a weight off of my chest. If you want more content from me, I have a Patreon where I upload patron exclusive videos, including bonus content. I just uploaded a video talking about books that I DNF'd. So we do really fun stuff over on my Patreon, but all of my social media links are in the description box below. Until next time, stay safe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.